Hello. Now this doesn't look very exciting, I know. So today I want to have a look at an alternative way to what I have been using of working with dies that cut and foil at the same time. So the Couture Creations Modern Essentials, cut, foil and embossed dies, the Crafter's Companion Gemini, cut and foil dies. Couture Creations have now brought out some slightly thinner dies with texture on them. They call them those cut and create dies, but basically they're a cut and foil die. They're just made to a slightly different specification. I've tried out a few from my stash. So that was a Christmas one, so it cuts the bauble and folds it at the same time. I've got the butterfly. I've tried out a few. I've got no nails and I'm trying to pick this up. So yeah, the butterfly came out really beautifully. Almost no overfoiling anywhere on it, which is quite important. Let me get the camera to focus. There we are. So it really came out beautifully. I did a leaf from another recent collection, and these are Couture Creations cut, foil and embossed dies. And again, that foiled really beautifully. And the best thing of all is I don't get any marks on my GoPress and foil lid. So previously I've either worked with a metal shim with some card shims underneath to make up the thickness, or I've been working with a Couture Creations conversion plate. The conversion plate's a big, thick, solid plate. You zoom the camera in so you can see how thick the edge is. Let me get that, then turn the edge. So it's a really thick, substantial plate. It's actually, it's over 1 millimetre thick. It's 1.2 millimetres thick. So it's very substantial. Not going to bend it. Okay. So the alternative I'm trying out is working with two thin metal shims. Now this is a thin metal shim. It's only 0.5 millimetres thick. So 0.5 millimetre. It's the sort of thing you'd buy to use with your die cutting machine. If you're cutting fabric, perhaps if your die cutting machine needs help with very intricate dies. So thin metal shim. So what I've been doing is working with two of them, but not stacking them up directly. So let me get my GoPress and foil over. And again, the advantage of this is you don't end up with scratches on your lid. Let me zoom the camera back. Okay, so my GoPress and foil, my lid's a bit, the lines on it are a bit worn, and it's not its original lid. I've replaced it several times because I've only just come up with this idea, and it gets scratched to a certain point where it starts affecting the quality of your foiling, and then you can buy replacement lids and you just pull them off at the hinges and put them on. But I know I've at times had trouble getting them when they've gone out of stock, and there's the cost. And I thought, well, if there's a way of doing it that reduces the wear and tear on the lid, then that would be better. So this is what I've come up with. So I've got one thin metal shim. I've used this one a lot over the last, probably over a year. When I've been foiling embossing folders, foiling with the backs of cutting dies, which I'll make a separate video about, and just generally. So it's got quite a rippled appearance. It's quite hot because I've had it on there warming up. So the new idea is that I use that, and then I'm going to put my card and die sandwich in the middle, and I'm going to put the thin one on top. Okay, and then I'm going to add some more shim still. So let me put that to one side to be warming up. I need to get some foil, the die ready. So I made, let me just show you this. This is work in progress for a card. So I've made this frame, and that's using this part of one of the cut, foil and embossed dies. Oops, stray foil. And I want to make the inner part for it. Okay, it's supposed to look like a really aged antique bronze frame. Not sure if I'm succeeding, but So I want to foil the inner part. So I've got my same foil that I've used for some of that. Actually, I've used 2 different colours on that, but and then I've got my piece of card and some foil. And what I want to do first is cut the middle out. Okay, so I'm going to put my foil on here and just tape it down near the edge. And I've got a craft knife. I'm just going roughly, very roughly, around the outside. That just makes it easier to tape it to the card in a moment. I'm just going to use the die to hold it down there. You keep your fingers away from your craft knife. Okay, if you're at all worried, turn things around so you can keep your fingers away from them. Okay, now I'm going to put some more tape on so it holds still. Let's just finish off that bit. I'm going to do as I say, I'm going to turn it round so I can keep my fingers away. So if I do that, I can then keep my fingers so that I'm cutting away from them. Okay, and now I want to cut the middle out. So I don't need to go right to the edge, and it doesn't matter if my line wobbles a bit. I'm just going to go round the inside. And this helps to prevent overfoiling on the middle bit. So I've got it taped. I am holding the foil as well. Always cutting away from my hand that's holding the foil and the die. And depending on the shape you're cutting, you may well need to turn your cutting mat round. This is a self-healing cutting mat that I keep just for doing this. So it doesn't actually get cut lines in it. It's got a few scuff marks from foil, but no actual cuts. So I'm going to lift that off. I'm going to put my foil onto my piece of card. That's there, and oops. And I'm going to tape it down. So I want to take the die and the foil. And that's because when I'm working with metal plates, everything's quite slippery. And I often find that if I don't tape it down and just lay it on top, when I unlock the GoPress and I roll it, it actually moves. So, and it either moves so that the die misses the card or so that the foil misses. So I tape it down. So that's that. So that goes onto my GoPress and foil. It goes with the die down. The cutting edge will be facing up because that's facing into my card, because this is a cut and foil die. It needs to cut upwards into my card. I'm going to put my other metal plate, metal shim, on top. And then I need to add some card shims. Now, depends kind of what you're doing and the thickness of your die and your die cutting machine. So I'm starting with 2 pieces of A4 card folded in half. So that's double thickness number 1, and then I've got double thickness number 2, which seems to be about right for my die cutting machine. But on your die cutting machine, it might be less, it might be more. Okay, and I'm going to see how this goes. I might want to add, instead of one of these layers, a card shim underneath the metal plate so that the card that I'm foiling presses into the die more. Depends how well it picks up the detail. So I'm going to start off without that and see how it goes. Okay, so that needs to warm up. Okay, the metal plate was warm, but now the die needs to heat. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that in a minute or two. Okay, so this has now had lots of time to warm up, rather than just a couple of minutes I was planning, because there was an interruption. So I'll just make sure it is at temperature. And I'm going to roll it through and we'll see how tight it is, because you might find when you roll through you go, oh, that feels tight. And if that's the case, because you know your die cutting machine, then back off your shims a bit. If you've got an electronic machine you're using, you know, electric die cutting machine, then you might have to start with fewer shims and do some test and build it up to the right level. So I'm going to start with my usual 4. So I'm going to wind that through. Now it's going through, it's not fighting me, but it does feel reasonably tight. Now remember, I am die cutting as well as foiling this, so when I get to the die I feel like I'm cutting a die. You know, I can feel that in my handle. It's one of the reasons I prefer a manual machine. Okay, so I've gone back, forwards and backwards. You might not have to go backwards and forwards. I haven't got enough clearance behind my machine to pull it out from the back easily. So I always go backwards and forwards, or forwards and backwards. Both directions. Right, so let me sit back down and bring the camera so you can actually see what I'm doing. So let's pull this out and undo the stack. Bring that around a bit more. There we are. So take my shims out. Now I've got a spare, I've got my silicone mat here. I'm going to use that to grab my metal plate because it is hot. Put that to one side. I've got my die, my foiling on, and we'll see how it's done. Now that's fallen out the die, so it's already cut nicely. Now it might not have picked up the detail around the edge, so let's have a look. I'm just going to peel a little bit and I can see there, not sure that really has picked up that detail around the edge. So I'm going to pop that back in, making sure it matches up. Okay, so it's gone back in exactly the same place. I'm going to put some tape on the back to hold that in place. There's a couple of places. I'm going to take another piece of card and put on top, and I'm going to put it back in again. Okay. So I've got an extra layer, so this goes on as it did before, and then I've got my extra layer of card there. Okay, now that is going to get cut into, it will be sacrificed, or the two will be stuck together to give me some extra thickness. Okay, so then I want my second metal shim, which has cooled down that quickly, so it's warm but it's not hot. I'm going to put that on. I'm going to add one double shim and a single shim, because I've already got one in with my die on the other side of the metal plate, so it all adds up to the same thickness, and that is going to have to heat up again. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay, so my GoPress and foil, I've left it and it's just gone back to flashing red, and then it's just gone green again. So now I'm going to roll it through. Again, I can feel it's quite firm because I am die cutting, but I'm not really having to force it. It just feels like it would if I was die cutting. Okay, let's bring the camera back round. Put it straight. There we are, that's better. Right, let's see what we've got this time. So my shims, single layer, double layer. Oh, that one is thinner. So take the second metal shim off carefully, it'll be hot. Take my card off. Now, while that's warming up, actually, I've got here, now this is a Crafter's Companion Gemini foil press cut foil die. So I thought I'd try out this technique with those. So I'm going to pop that on to be warming up while I'm looking at this. Now, it occurred to me I hadn't tested this technique with those. So this might not work, and I might decide I need another layer of card, or that I've got the wrong amount of card shims. We'll see. But that can warm up while we're looking at this. So, there it's popped out. Both the layers of card are kind of stuck together, so peel those. So that's great. If I'm going to put this up on foam pads and I don't want it to flop about, I can actually stick the two layers together and sort of laminate it. There we are. So just peeling this off. So now, rather than just little dashes around that edge, I've actually got the proper shape that should be foiled. There. I've got a tiny bit of overfoiling as well. So let me bring that in. So you can see I've got all the detail. So a tiny bit of overfoiling, that will rub off really easy because it's such a fine line. That's just from where the edge of my foil was. So there we are. So that has foiled really nicely. My tape on the back has cut through, so make sure you remember to carefully remove that. Now always don't start peeling from your cut edge, start peeling from in the middle, and you're much less likely to tear your card. There we are, a bit of glue to rub off the back. So that's that one. The other one, I've just heard my GoPress go click, so that should be hot enough. So let's move this out of the way, and I'm going to roll that through. Oops. Put the camera zoom back. That's better. Okay. Now that feels quite tight. It is a bigger die. Now you may have noticed I've put my GoPress through at a slight angle, and that's so that I don't go straight across that straight edge at the end of my die. But if you can't do that because you've only got a narrow machine, the thing to do is when you put it on your platform is to actually turn it at a slight angle. So there we are. So let's see if this has worked. So let me put the camera back to my mat and bring this over. Okay, so I didn't bother cutting the middle out of my foil because this die cuts the middle out of what it's doing. Okay, so I do want to get my foiling out if I can. Not quite cut through. So I'm looking at that and I'm just going to tell you, I can tell by the look of it, I didn't have enough pressure. It hasn't pushed into the die properly. So I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to add an extra layer. First of all, I'm going to put some tape on just to make sure that doesn't shift. And then I'll put an extra layer of card in, and I'm going to put it all back on and heat it again and dry it again. I'm going to put it, let me bring the GoPress over, show you what I mean about putting it at an angle. So I've got my die and I'm going to put it at a slight angle so that as my roller comes on, it doesn't hit the end of the rectangle all in one go. It hits a corner, kind of comes across at an angle. Those. Second metal plate, and then reduce the number of shims because I've got one the other side. Okay, so I've got a single layer and a double layer instead. and then heat it up. So again, oh, and this, now this started off as white card. Let's talk about this. I will do a proper video on this technique. Not the gilding wax and things, but if you look at this closely, I've actually got, get the camera to focus, zoom in a bit. There. And you see I've actually got two different colours of foil on there. So I will be doing a video all about how to do that. It's definitely a video in its own right. But this started off as white card that I foiled. So that will go in there. But it needs toning in. So I'm going to rub off my overfoiling quickly. And you can use your creative detailer tool if you've got one of those, or a sand eraser. It's only a tiny little bit of overfoiling. And then I want to put some ink on there. And I don't know if people think about doing this, that using their inks with their foil. So I just need some. Need something to put that on. So I can colour this with my inks and my blending tool, whatever method you like for colouring your card. So if you're foiling on white card, it doesn't have to stay as white card. Okay, you can do that kind of thing. I don't know if that's focusing. That's better. Okay, so my GoPress Foil has had plenty of time to warm up now. So let's roll it through. Just move the camera. There we are, it's just gone green again. So again, I am die cutting, so you know, it feels quite stiff. It feels like I'm die cutting, but I'm not having to force it. So, 3 layers of shims. Metal plate, my die, okay, let's see what I've got this time. So I've got my extra layer and everything's just falling out the die. So let's see what this has done. Oops. So now I've got all that lovely detail. So if you're finding you're getting what looks like kind of wishy-washy foiling that's fading out at the edges and not the crisp pattern you're expecting, you possibly need to use that extra layer of card on the back. And it's one of those things, if you're using some nice thick card, then you may not need that extra layer. But I'm working on it's a 250 GSM card, but it's a really dense 250 GSM card. lovely smooth surface, but it's not a thick card. So yeah, so that's worked really nicely. As you can see, it's cut out the middle. I would probably go around with a sand eraser and just take, let me zoom the camera. Don't know if it, yeah, the camera just about picks it up. There's foil around the inside edge where the cut line was. So I would generally just take my sand eraser around there and remove that just to clean up that edge. Other than that, that's come out absolutely perfectly. So there we are. That's how to work with the cut foil dies from different collections, different manufacturers, without scratching the lid of your GoPress. Okay, thanks for watching.